a long time ago, there was a girl named Liesel. And Liesel was a girl that you would think anybody would be glad to have as a daughter. She was beautiful, which, a lot of people find that sort of thing very important. And she could sing, and she could dance, and she was just very cultured. She loved to read, but she did not have any interest at all in learning how to spin or weave or sew or cook or clean, or if you talk to her mother, do anything useful at all. And so it was a constant struggle as Liesel was growing up. She would sing, she would dance, she would flit around the house. She was an ornament to every occasion that she went to, but she would not sit still for a lesson. And her mother finally said, "You are going to have to learn how to spin. A young lady out here in our village, the boys might enjoy your beauty, but they will not marry you because you're beautiful. You have to do something useful. You must learn how to spin." And Liesel, being all of 17 years old, would stomp her foot and march upstairs and slam the trapdoor to the loft and sulk. Well, this went on like this and on like this, and Liesel's mother remarried, and Liesel's stepfather said, "If you do not learn how to spin by your 18th birthday, next week, I'm going to turf you out, and you'll have to fend for yourself." Well, Liesel was a little worried, and maybe now and again she sat down at the wheel and she tried to get it to spin, but she couldn't make anything. Boy, she'd have done anything to have a wheel like that. The one that she had, if you pushed on the treadle, it wouldn't go in any kind of a regular pattern, and when she tried to pull on the thread, everything just went everywhere, and she wound up with knots of thread in her hair, and it was just awful. And so the day before her birthday, her mother and her stepfather said, "We have brought you 7 bushels of flax and wool ready to be spun. Do some spinning, or you're out tomorrow." Well, Liesel, I'm going to step away from the microphone for just a moment. Because when Liesel went upstairs, she wailed and cried and stomped her feet, and she said, "I can't!" Oh my goodness. Well, her mother and her stepfather were not going to stay in the house with that kind of noise going on long, and so they said, "We'll be back," and off they went. And Liesel, well, for a while she continued the tantrum the way only a really dedicated teenage girl could do. But after a while, there was no audience, and she heard something strange outside her window. Well, she looked out her window, and she saw 3 strange women. I know what you're thinking. You're looking at one strange woman, but these women, they were really strange. They all had similar features, no front teeth at all. They're very, very old. They're very, very wrinkled. They were all walking down the road, and one of them, her whole hand was one thumb. And the second one, she was flopping along with one normal foot and one great big foot. And the third one, the faint of heart would have had to look away because her lip was hanging down around her knee. Yeah, they were quite a sight to see, but Liesel, she was fascinated. And she lifted up her trapdoor and she ran outside and she said, "Oh, aunties." Aunties was the term of respect for any older women at that time. She said, "Oh, aunties, who are you? And what brought you here to my village where nothing interesting ever happens ever?" And they said, "Oh, are you by any chance the source of all that caterwauling? And well, Liesel, she hung her head and she said, yes. And the one who was with the great big foot, she said, oh, we came because of you. And the one with the lip hanging down to her knee, she said, tell us, child, how can we help you? And Liesel said, well, my stepfather is going to turn me out if I don't spin. I never want to learn how to spin. I want to dance. I want to sing. I want to see the big city. And the three strange women, they talked to each other for a moment and they said, if you, should you ever get married, will invite us without shame as your wedding guests, well then we can take care of your problem. Well, Liesel, she had no intention of getting married anytime soon, but she thought, wow, what a wedding that would be with these three here. Sure, I promise I will. And the three sisters went up into the loft, and when they came back down, Liesel looked inside, and all of those bushels of flax and wool had been spun into the most beautiful, even thread you could ever hope to see. Now, the amount that was there was called a septus. And the weird sisters walked along. And the mother and the stepfather came back. And Liesel said, I have a septus of yarn, of thread, for you to see. They didn't believe her, but they went in and they saw. And her stepfather in particular, he brought it all outside and yelled to the road, to anyone who might be passing by, my stepdaughter has spun the most beautiful thread. And just then, there happened to be coming by the queen. Now the queen, she heard how much spinning and how beautiful she could see this wool, this yarn, this thread was. And she said, oh, I have a flibberty-gibbet of a son. He needs someone who can do something really useful. Let me see your stepdaughter. And so Liesel came out and bowed low before the queen, and the queen said, oh, she's quite a looker, this one, but even more important, that she should be able to do something useful. Young lady, would you like to come up on my horse and go back with me to meet my son? And Liesel was no dummy. She hopped on that horse like that. And I'm sure you're all knowing what would happen if the beautiful girl saw the prince, and the prince saw the beautiful girl. And the queen, she had dressed her in very, very beautiful clothing. And the whole way back, the queen and Liesel had been talking about all the interesting things that Liesel had read about in books. And, well, by the time they got there, they were thick as thieves, and the prince was so happy to see a beautiful girl that his mother had brought home, because, quite honestly, the ones that she had been presenting to him before were so serious and so boring. And so they got married. And when the wedding was being planned, oh, Liesel, thank goodness, unlike many, many folk tales, she remembered her promise. And she said, oh, we have to invite my aunties. And in they came to the wedding. And when they surrounded the prince, he said, I've never seen such ugly women in my life. Now, he was very, very quiet about that, but he did say it. And the women, they said, do you have something to ask us, son? And he said, well, I'm sorry to be so rude, but I'm just wondering what happened that you, my good auntie, have such strange-looking hand that it appears to be all thumb. And she said, oh, well, I've been spinning all my life, and I use the thumb to draw the thread. And he said to the one with the big foot, he said, and you have one foot that's so much larger than the other one. And she said, oh, yes. I've been spinning with the wheel all my life, and every time I do, my foot gets longer and longer. And he said, and he could barely even look at her, and you, good auntie? what happened to your lip? And she said, well, you know, you have to lick a thread when you're spinning. And so really, this is what all spinners look like at some point in their lives. Oh, said the prince. Well, my darling bride, Liesel, I think that I do not want you to spin, no matter how good you are at it, ever again.